Hello! Words you need для нормально общающихся. Lesson 13. Now, if you have reached lesson 13, then I guess you can understand me pretty well. Of course, perhaps you don't understand all native speakers as well as you understand me, which is normal. You know, I speak quite clearly. Not everybody speaks like this. But one reason why many people find reading much easier than listening is that you know words, but you don't always know exactly how they're pronounced. And that's why in my course, there is such a big focus on pronunciation. And it's why I really want you to practice pronouncing all the words. It's not enough just to listen to me. You need to listen to me and repeat. You need to pronounce all the sentences. But don't pronounce the sentences without listening to me, because pronouncing words incorrectly won't help you to understand English better. You need to pronounce the words correctly, the way that we native speakers pronounce them, and then it really will become easier to understand them. And remember, all the words are in sentences because it's so important to know how a word is pronounced in context as part of a sentence, not separately. It's easy often to understand a word separately, but you need to know how it sounds in a sentence. So don't just repeat individual words, repeat the whole sentences. That's not all. In this lesson, the first 30 words are words which are different in Russian and English. So they're words you really need to learn. But then the last 20 words, they are cognates. Cognates are родственные слова. So words which share the same root. So they're similar in English and Russian. And of course, there are quite a lot of words which are cognates in English and Russian. In fact, the last 170 words in this course are cognates. I decided to separate them because I think that we should approach cognates a bit differently to the way that we approach words which are different in Russian and English. The words which are different require more attention. Cognates, they don't need so much attention. It's very easy to guess the meaning, so you nearly always understand a cognate when you hear it, but very often people don't use them correctly or don't pronounce them correctly. So they're still important. They still deserve some attention, but I decided that we should focus on them separately. So in this lesson, the first 30 words are not cognates. The last 20 words are cognates. Right. Enough for the introduction. Let's get on with the lesson. First sentence. Сельское хозяйство очень важно для местной экономики. Сельское хозяйство на английском. Включаем голосовой ввод текста. Voice typing. Agriculture is very important for the local economy. Just remember agriculture, when we say culture, T-U-R-E is pronounced with a ch. Agriculture. Ch. And the adjective, я учился в сельскохозяйственном колледже. I studied at an agricultural college. In this context, college and college are cognates. But here we're focusing on the word agricultural. And again, TU is pronounced with a ch. Agricultural. Agricultural college. The next word. Я совсем забыл об этом. Of course, you can say, I had completely forgotten about it. But here we need a word beginning with a that we use at the end of a sentence. And that word is altogether. I had forgotten about it altogether. And I wonder what other verbs are often used close to this word altogether. Let's try 3 before and 3 after and see what we get. Verbs. hopefully this will generate a useful list for us. So to be, you can say, have you altogether finished? Instead of completely finished. So that's with to be. He's trying to avoid me altogether. Like, avoid me completely. Avoid me altogether. Избежать от меня. Has the rain stopped altogether? Has it completely stopped? So this word altogether, usually it's a synonym for completely. Okay, let's move on. Я несу хорошие новости. A word beginning with b. I am the bearer of good news. So there's the verb to bear. Now, perhaps you know it's an irregular verb, bear, bore, born. And of course, the third form of this word is the most commonly used form. I was born in 1989. Родился. Why? Because women bear children. Try that again. It didn't work. Women bear children. There we go. And you can talk about childbearing. There we go. Childbearing. Women bear children. Because to bear means to carry something. But we don't usually use it in that context. Nowadays, this word bear is more often found in this context when we talk about something like pain. Я не могу вынести этой боли. I can't bear the pain. Or as an adjective, боль была невыносимой. The pain was unbearable. So don't say, let me bear your bag. That sounds silly. Nobody says that. We say, let me carry your bag. But try to learn the phrase, I can't bear the tension, the pain, I don't know. What other words are often used with bear? Let's have a look. Bear with nouns. We use this phrase to bear arms, which is to carry a weapon, to bear arms. You can talk about bearing responsibility. I can't bear the responsibility. Like the responsibility is too much for me. There's also this phrase, to bear a resemblance. They bear a resemblance. It means they look similar. So there are a few phrases that we use quite often. But if we're just talking about carrying an object, a bag, then we don't use bear. So bear, can't bear, unbearable. Oh, one more phrase that's useful actually. Bear with me. We use this phrase, bear with me, when I want you... Потерпи меня чуть-чуть. Потерпи. Bear with me. Quite a useful phrase in conversation. Right, the next one. Мы будем внимательно следить за вами. Of course, it could be carefully. We'll be watching you carefully. But it's not in this case. We'll be watching you closely. And some other words that are used with closely. Closely. With verbs. Let's see what we get. So you can work closely with somebody. We worked closely together. In that case, of course, it's not внимательно. It's really... Can you say близко сотрудничали? I don't know. Тесно, maybe. Тесно сотрудничали. We worked closely together. But you can follow closely. You can watch closely. That's внимательно. You can also say, these ideas are closely related. That's also about близко. So, closely. And when you pronounce closely, try to do a very short closely, closely. Because before an unvoiced vowel, an unvoiced consonant, like s is an unvoiced gluchoi consonant, we clip the vowel. Closely. Okay, the next one. Она работает в сфере недвижимости. She works in real estate. And we talk about real estate, I think, because a long time ago, the main meaning of estate was усадьба. Мы посетили усадьбу Толстого. We visited Tolstoy's estate. Or it could be the Tolstoy estate. Tolstoy's estate. Усадьба. The next one. Не искушай судьбу. Судьба, in English, is fate. Don't tempt fate. Pronunciation, fate. Remember to clip the A. Fe, you need to pronounce with a smile. Fe, smile. Fate, pause, t. Fate. Don't tempt fate. Let's look at the other verbs that often appear before the word fate. This word fate, we say, his fate was sealed. To seal is what you do with an envelope when you close it and then you put something on it so that it can't be opened. To seal. If someone's fate was sealed, then все, судьба уже нельзя изменить. His fate was sealed. We also sometimes say his fate was decided. Судьба была решена. And if somebody принял свою судьбу, he accepted his fate. Принять свою судьбу. Okay, the next one. Она казалась искренне расстроенной. Искренне in English. She seemed genuinely upset. Genuinely. We also use genuine when we want to say something is not fake. So, this wallet is made of genuine leather. It's not artificial. It's not fake. It's genuine. Genuine leather. So, if I think that she isn't really upset, if I think she's pretending, if I think she's putting it on, I can say, no, she's not genuinely upset. But if I think it's real, then genuinely. Smile. Genuinely. You can hold the j at the beginning. Genuinely. Genuinely upset. Adjectives that are often found with genuinely. Genuinely. So you can be genuinely interested. Because very often we pretend, притворяемся, we pretend to be interested, but I'm genuinely interested in this topic. I'm genuinely concerned, like I'm worried about it. I was genuinely surprised. I'm genuinely curious to know. Genuinely. Okay. I think that's a helpful list, actually. The next one. Спасибо за подсказку. Thanks for the hint. When you pronounce this word, hint, make sure that you open your mouth. Don't say hint, hint. Your h won't sound good if you don't open your mouth. It doesn't work. You have to open your mouth. You have to open your mouth to say hint. Here, try to clip the in before the unvoiced T at the end. Hint. The hint. And there's also the verb намекать. На что ты намекаешь? What are you hinting at? Hinting. There's another nice verb, actually. What are you implying? So implying is quite formal. What are you hinting at? That's quite informal. So to imply is formal. To hint is more informal. The next one – это чудо, что она выжила. Чудо. It's a miracle that she survived. It's a miracle. The difficult thing here is to pronounce the R properly. Miracle. Don't close your mouth to pronounce the R. Look at me. So my tongue goes up, but my mouth doesn't close. Miracle. Like that. Miracle. 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 Don't close your mouth. If you do, miracle. No. Miracle. A miracle that she survived. And there's an adjective, miraculous. Она чудесным образом выздоровела. She made a miraculous recovery. Miraculous. What other things are often miraculous? Miraculous with nouns. Oh, miraculous recovery is number one. He has miraculous powers. There were many miraculous events. Miracle, the stress is on the e, so it's mi, long ma, but miraculous, it's on the a, so miraculous, the r is longer. Miraculous, miraculous. Okay, and the next one, the last word in the first part of the lesson, многочисленные попытки подняться на вершину не увенчались успехом. Multiple attempts to reach the summit were unsuccessful. So, многочисленные, multiple. And when we talk about maths, we use this verb a lot. Сколько будет 6 умноженное на 7? What is 6 multiplied by 7? Obviously, 6 multiplied by 7 is 42. And the word is written like this. Multiplied. Multiplied by 7. Multiplied. Multiplied. What other words often come after multiple? Let's have a quick look. Multiple times. Multiple sclerosis. That's an illness. Most of these words are about mathematics. We can talk about множественные источники. Или, просто не один источник. Multiple sources confirmed the accuracy of the information. That's about источники. Multiple choice, that's a type of quiz. Multiple choice, when you can choose A, B, C, or D. That's a multiple choice quiz. Okay, that's 10 words. So now is the time to press pause, take a little break, have a drink. If you haven't pronounced all the sentences yet, then press pause, go back and read all the sentences. That's how to remember. That's how to make sure everything stays in your mind. You need to pronounce all the sentences at least once, but ideally a few times. And if you do it with голосовой ввод текста, voice typing, then it's even more interesting. Okay, press pause, come back in a few minutes. Bye. Okay, part 2, word number 611. Когда мы въехали, стены были голыми. Голые стены. When we moved in, the walls were bare. Now, interestingly, we've already had the verb to bear today, and here we have the adjective bare. Of course, they're pronounced exactly the same way. There's no difference. Bear to bear. There's also a word, naked. Голый человек is a naked person. So if we're talking about a figure, then a figure can be naked. But something like walls can be bare. And if we compare bare and naked, we should get a good idea of the way that the different words are used. So as you can see, after bare, we often talk about parts of the body. Bare feet is bosikom. We use this phrase, I built this house with my bare hands. Своими как будто голыми руками. We also talk about bare legs. No. She had bare legs. He had bare arms. Bare. You can also say, the cupboards were bare. If there was nothing in the cupboards. You can say, the trees were bare. If they had no leaves, the trees were bare. Whereas naked, let's do before and after. As you can see, a naked body, a naked man, a naked woman, naked people, naked pictures. So basically naked is about people. Bare is about parts of people. Or cupboards, walls, floors, etc. Right, next. This is also bare, bosikom, barefoot. The kids were running around barefoot. There we go, bosikom. And a similar, or a related word, у нас едва хватает еды. We have barely enough to eat. Едва, barely. And barely is often used before verbs. For example, we barely know each other. Like, мы почти не знаем друг друга. Практически не знаем. We barely made it on time. Вот это мы еле успели. We barely made it. Barely. I barely noticed the difference. Я почти не заметил разницу. Barely. Okay, next word. Многие компании пытаются стать углеродно-нейтральными. We use this phrase a lot now in England. I don't know about in Russia, but it's used a lot in the West. Many companies are trying to become carbon neutral. So carbon is углерод, углеродные. Carbon dioxide is, I always forget this in Russian. Carbon dioxide, углекислый газ. Carbon dioxide, углекислый газ. And carbon monoxide, what's that then? Carbon monoxide is угарный газ. Carbon monoxide. So carbon monoxide is very dangerous. Carbon dioxide is not so dangerous, but also not always a good thing. So carbon is все, что углеродный, I guess. Next one. Я оставил цветы на могиле. Могила is a grave. I left some flowers on the grave. Here we have a v at the end. It's voiced, so there's a lot of y. Grave. You should hold the y before you pronounce the little v at the end. Grave. Grave. I left flowers on the grave. And русские кладбища часто расположены в лесу. Russian graveyards are often located in the forest. You have probably come across the word cemetery. A cemetery, not symmetry. Cemetery. A graveyard. What's the difference? The words are used almost interchangeably, to be honest. Cemetery, graveyard. I feel like, but perhaps this is just my feeling, that in a graveyard, the bodies are all buried under the ground. Whereas in a cemetery, perhaps there are more of these tombs where the bodies could be above the ground or below the ground. But basically, the words are interchangeable. I feel like the Russian version, where the bodies are usually underground, feels more like a graveyard than a cemetery. But you can use whichever word you prefer. The next one. Собаки обычно очень преданы своим хозяевам. Dogs, wrong language. Dogs are usually very loyal to their owners. Loyal. The stress is on the oi, so do a nice long l at the beginning. L, with your lips forward in the o position. Loyal to their owners. Никто не ставит под сомнение вашу преданность команде. Nobody is questioning your loyalty to the team. Again, long l at the beginning. Loyalty. Loyalty. A stretchy l. Loyalty. Of course, in Russian there is the word лояльный. I think the meaning is quite close. But преданность, also loyal. The next one. Мы отправились в путь в полдень. Полдень. Noon. We set off at noon. I'm sure you know the word afternoon. In the afternoon. Actually, it's worth mentioning that when we say afternoon, the stress is on noon. Very often people say afternoon. In the afternoon. With the stress on the a. Nope, it's not on the a. In the afternoon. In the afternoon. The stress is on noon. So you need to be able to pronounce noon, полдень, correctly. Not noon. It's not noon, it's noon. Look at my lips. Noon. Noon. Starts open, then closes. Noon. N-u-n. N-u-n. Noon. Noon. It has a w in it. N-u-n. Noon. Noon. Afternoon. Okay, the next one. Она написала книгу о воспитании детей. She wrote a book about parenting. So in English, of course, parent is родитель, parents, родители, but to parent is also a verb, to parent. I don't know how to parent my children. And воспитание детей, we can talk about parenting. Of course, воспитывать своих детей, we also often use phrasal verbs like I don't know how to bring up my children. I don't know how to raise my children. Or this verb, I don't know how to parent my children. But the topic of воспитание детей is usually called parenting. Remember to smile. Parenting, not parenting. Parenting, a double e sound. Parenting. Parenting. Okay, the next one. Я вложил в этот проект все свои сбережения. Сбережения are my savings. I invested all my savings in the project. Savings. Savings. It's interesting because save money, it can be сэкономить. She's always looking for ways to save money. Как можно сэкономить деньги? But you can also save money in the bank. And when you save more and more and more money, you save up money, you get savings. Savings is the money that you have saved up. Savings, saved up. Next. Ну, не обязательно, что вы сэкономили. Хотя это может быть и сэкономили. So it's a bit confusing that saving can be about накопление and it can be about экономия. Next, он поднял меч. Меч is a sword. He picked up the sword. Sword. It has a W, but you don't need to say it. It's not a sword. It's just a sword. It's an a double o sound. Sword, sword. The first can be higher than the second one. Sword, 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 sword. He picked up the sword. Next one. Я не жду от нее сочувствия. Сочувствие, sympathy. I don't expect sympathy from her. Сочувствие, sympathy. And the adjective is sympathetic. Когда я сказал, что болен, что болею, мои родители не проявили сочувствия. When I said I was ill, my parents weren't sympathetic. So, не проявили сочувствия, they weren't sympathetic. Sympathetic. The next one. Она вытерла лицо фланельной. Before we do this about sympathetic. Of course, in Russian there's a word sympatичный. But sympatичный and sympathetic are not related in English and Russian because sympathetic is about сочувствие, but sympatичный is just he's a good-looking man. Он симпатичный человек. So be careful. They are false friends, ложные друзья, sympatичный and sympathetic. Sympathetic, сочувствие. And the last word in this part of the lesson, она вытерла лицо фланелевой салфеткой. Вытереть лицо или вытереть стол, wipe. She wiped her face with a flannel. And let's have a quick look at some other things that we often wipe. So wipe and then nouns. Let's have a look. So wipe away tears. We often use that phrase. That's about слезы, tears. He wiped his eyes. She wiped her hands. That's to wipe your hands. He wiped away the sweat. That's about пот. Wiped. He wiped his brow. Brow is another word for лоб, forehead, to wipe. So, wipe, вытерять. That's another 10 words, so press pause and remember, you need to read all the sentences out loud, вслух, at least once. Okay, then you can watch the next part of the lesson. Alright, part 3. Now, these are the last 10 words that are not cognates. So, let's go. На прошлой неделе был назначен новый министр образования. We're talking about назначение. The word in English is appoint. A new education minister was appointed last week. So, назначить is to appoint. Of course, we can also appoint, назначить, a time or a date. Пожалуйста, приходите за 10 минут до назначенного времени. Please come 10 minutes before the appointed time. The appointed, remember when we say the appointed, we connect the words the and a y sound appears. The appointed. The appointed time. And a word which is commonly used, really it probably shouldn't be number 621, is appointment. У меня назначен прием у доктора Янга. I have an appointment with Dr. Young. So, an appointment. We use it all the time when we talk about specialists. So it could be medical. In fact, it nearly always is medical. But actually, we don't usually say an appointment with my friend. That sounds a bit weird. So it's usually a professional meeting with somebody. That would be an appointment. I've got an appointment with the doctor. I've got an appointment with my therapist. An appointment. I would like to make an appointment. Я хочу записаться на прием. Make an appointment. All right, the next one. Рана все еще кровоточит. I'm sure you know that кровь is blood. If we talk about кровотечение, the verb is to bleed. The wound is still bleeding. Perhaps, strangely, you have to smile when you say bleeding. There's a lot of y because we have a voiced d sound. Bleeding. Look, bleed, my mouth is closed, but ing, it's open. Bleeding. Когда кровь из носа, we call it a nosebleed. He's got a nosebleed. I used to have this problem. I used to get a lot of nosebleeds. Now I don't get so many, which is good. Nosebleed. No nosebleed. All right, the next one. В потолке есть трещина. There is a crack in the ceiling. So, трещина is a crack. Crack. Open your mouth really wide. Crack. But your should be clipped before the unvoiced k. Crack. So, a crack is трещина. But there's also the verb to crack something, and that взломала код. She cracked the code. I wonder what else we can crack. Let's have a look. Let's do it like that. Crack, nouns before and after. Let's see what we get. We need to make it a verb. Crack. Otherwise we get some other things. His voice cracked. We use that word if someone has normal voice. Then I can't do it. When somebody starts crying, basically, while speaking, that's his voice cracked. Cracked the code. Cracked the case. That's what Sherlock Holmes did. Sherlock Holmes cracked the case. Cracked. I don't know why it didn't understand cracked for me. Cracked the case. We also crack jokes. He cracks a lot of jokes. I'm not sure why, but there you go. She cracked out a smile. You can do that. Or like a voice can crack, his smile cracked. Like trying to hold it together. Smile. It's a fake smile, but no, I can't do it. It cracked. So, crack is about трещина, but we use it in lots of different contexts as well. Next word. Эту флейту изготовил искусный мастер. Useful translation of master here, actually. A skilled craftsman made this flute. A craftsman is a master when we talk about people who make things. Master изделий. Of course, master in Russian, you can be a master of many things. But if we're talking about somebody who makes things out of wood, especially, then we use the word craftsman. A craftsman. The next one. Давай отправимся... about crafts, actually, just while we're on the word crafts. Изделия, самоделки, you can call them crafts. It can also be handiwork, but we very often use the word craft. So I like doing crafts with my kids. That's about рукоделие. So, of course, I'm not a great craftsman. My kids are not great craftsmen. But we like doing crafts together. That's doing stuff with our hands. Crafts. Now we can talk about the next one. Давай отправимся в центр и купим что-нибудь поесть. This is a particularly American word. Вот, центр города. Let's head downtown and get something to eat. I hope you liked my American accent there. Downtown. Downtown. So in America, they use this word when they talk about the city centre or the town centre. Or in my city, we just call it, let's go into town. And that means the centre. Go into town. But in America, downtown. And центр Нью-Йорка будет downtown New York. Property in downtown New York is very expensive. Let's move on. Кто основал компанию? Who founded the company? Sometimes it's a bit confusing that the verb to find is find, found, found, but there's also the verb to found, and then the past forms founded, founded. Of course, find is находить, but to found is основать. There's also the noun foundations. This building is built on firm foundations. And that's about fundament, foundations. Of course, it's not related to find. They're different words. Основатель is a founder. Я являюсь одним из основателей компании. I am one of the company's founders. And if you want this word to sound really natural, remember to smile. Founders. It's a fa, like you're saying fat. And then it's a w, and then it's a n, and then it's a z at the end. Founders. 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 Lots of w, lots of n, but start with a smile. Founders. Another f word. Она была в ярости, когда узнала, что произошло. She was furious when she found out what happened. Furious. Now this vowel, it's quite a rare vowel. We don't use it very often. It's not quite furious, and it's not quite furious. So it's not the bird sound, furious. It's not the sound. I don't know. Used. It's furious. It's in between the two. It's like a long furious. It's a little bit like good. Furious. It's a bit like a very long in good. Something like that. Furious. It's quite rare. Don't worry, you can say furious if you want. You can even say furious if you want. But the correct sound is furious. Good. Furious. Okay, the next one. Она оскорбила меня. Оскорбила. She insulted me. Or with connected speech, she insulted me. She insulted. Obviously, to insult is it's not the same as insult in Russian, which actually insult is a stroke. У него был инсульт. He had a stroke. So these are false friends. They're not connected in this context. Оскорбить is to insult. She insulted me. The stress is on the second syllable, so stretch the s. Insult. The noun is also an insult. It was a terrible insult. So when we use the noun, the stress is on insult. when we use the verb, the stress is on salt. Insulted, it was an insult. Insulted, it was an insult. The next one, 629. Я не могу отвинтить крышку с этой бутылки. I can't unscrew the lid on this bottle. So to screw is this action. Actually, a screw can be винт or саморез or what's the other one? Шуруп. It's all of them. I don't know if you know the difference in Russian between винт, саморез and шуруп, but in English we only have one word, which is perhaps why it's very difficult for me to remember винт, саморез, шуруп in Russian. I want one word, because in English they are all screws, and the action, turning like that, is to screw something. We also use this word, если они надули нас. Of course, this is informal, but we say they screwed us. Надули. And there's the phrasal verb, I screwed up. It's like я провалился, я вот сделал колоссальную ошибку. У меня все не получилось. I screwed up. Серьезно ошибался. I screwed up. They screwed us, надули нас. And this word, жизнь в пригороде спокойнее. If we're talking about пригород, there is this word, suburbs. Life in the suburbs is quieter. Suburbs, but suburbs and пригород, it's not exactly the same thing, because suburbs is something quite particular. It means that there are lots of... Basically, it's спальный район, но с отдельными домами. Как будто коттеджный поселок, но не совсем коттеджный поселок, because it's not separated from the city. It's part of the city. There's no gap between the city and the suburbs. The suburbs are basically спальный район. But our idea of a спальный район is not like спальный район in a Soviet city with lots of apartment blocks. No. It's quiet streets, separate houses, nice gardens. That's the suburbs. So it's пригород, but it's a special type of пригород, the suburbs. Спальные районы с домами, с коттеджами. Okay. And that is the last word which is not a cognate. So in the next part of the lesson, we're going to talk about words which are cognate, so similar in English and Russian. But I need to say well done, because we've done 630 words which are quite different in English and Russian, so words which are more difficult to learn. So well done for getting this far, but I hope you'll stay with me and also watch the part about cognates, because I think it's also quite interesting. All right. Part 4, cognates. As you'll see, you don't need to learn these words exactly, because usually they're very similar in English and Russian, but you do need to pronounce them correctly. So, актерам нужен хороший агент. Agent in English is an agent. Actors need a good agent. As is often the case, in Russian the stress is on the second syllable, agent. In English it's on the first syllable, agent. Agent. And because we have a j, a voiced sound, we put a lot of y. So it's an e, then it's a y, and then jnt at the end. Agent. Agent. So the main sound in this word is the y. Agent. Of course, there's no y in the Russian word. So, unsurprisingly, Russian speakers often don't pronounce this word very naturally in English. Practice it. Agent. 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 Obviously, Bond. Bond is an agent of the Secret Service. James Bond, an agent. He's an agent of MI6. There we go. Agent. Next. У меня есть коллега из Австралии. This is another word that is often mispronounced. I have a colleague from Australia. So, colleague, коллега, colleague. The stress is on the first syllable. It's a colleague. Colleague. Because the second syllable is longer, people often think that it's the stressed one. Colleague. Colleague. No, it's colleague. Colleague. And to mark the stress, we often say a colleague. We use this pause. And then we use quite a lot of aspiration. A colleague. Try to use lots of air. A colleague from Australia. A colleague. He's a good colleague. A colleague from Australia. Colleague. And then league, we pronounce polugolasam, like under our voice. Colleague. The next one, лечение было очень эффективным. This is a really easy one. The treatment was very effective. Effectively, of course, though the stress moves. Effective. And to put a good stress on the don't go effective. Effective. The it's полуглухой because it's between two unvoiced consonants, a f and a k. Effective. So we hold the f, we do a little pause, and then ktiv. Effective. It was effective, not effective. Effective. Don't use too much voice when you pronounce this word. The next one, guide, or I might say экскурсовод in this context. I think экскурсовод may be a better translation. Экскурсовод показал нам музей. A guide showed us around the museum. It was a guide. So guide is guide. We also often talk about guidebooks. I bought a guidebook before going to London. I bought guide. Путеводитель. A guidebook. Remember to open your mouth. Guide. Not go. It's impossible to pronounce this word with your mouth closed. Guidebook. A guide. Lots of y as well. Y. And then the d at the end almost disappears. Guide. A guide showed us around the museum. Guide. The next one. В автобусе был только один пассажир. Пассажир is a passenger. There was only one passenger on the bus. Passagier, passenger. So the stress is different in English. Passenger. Or in the south of England, passengers. The passengers. I think it's passenger. Or do they say passengers? Maybe they say passengers. I'm not actually sure. Anyway, you should say passenger, I think. The northern way. That's safe. Passenger. Passenger on the bus. Passengers. Пассажиры. Passengers. Я написал это стихотворение для своей мамы. Стихотворение, that's not the cognate. The cognate is poema. We're going to talk about поэты, поэзия. But here, okay, it's стихотворение. The English word is poem. I wrote this poem for my mum. A poem. What's interesting here is we get a w sound. It's wim. Poem. Don't miss the w. It's probably the most important sound. Poem, not poem. Poem for my mum. Мой друг поэт. My friend is a poet. 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 And мы изучаем поэзию на уроках литературы. We study poetry in our literature lessons. Poetry. 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 The next one, this is a word which is often mispronounced. Я не интересуюсь политикой. I am not interested in politics. We don't say politics. Oh, no, I am not interested in politics. It's politics. The stress is on the first syllable. How do we mark it? We mark it with a pause. In politics. Like we want to make the sound, but we don't let it out for a moment. And that marks the stress. In politics. Politics. And don't say Paul. Politics. Open your mouth. In politics. I'm not interested in politics. Politics. But when we say politician, the stress is on the third syllable. Она популярный политик. She's a popular politician. Politic, politician. Politic, politician. The stress is on the T, politician. So what do? We do a pause, politician. And we add a bit more s, politician. A bit more air, politician, politician. The adjective is political. And that really explains why this word is such a nightmare. Because it's politics, political, but politician. So the stress moves in each form of the word. Politics, first syllable. Political, second syllable. Politician, third syllable. Nie lubię polityczne dyskusje. I don't like political discussions. Political. How do we stress it? With a lot of l. Political. Political. So in politics, there's a pause before the unvoiced p. Political, we've got a stretchy l. Politician, there's a pause before the unvoiced t. Politics, political, politician. The next one. Я хотел бы зарезервировать столик. I would like to make a reservation. Actually, a reservation, it's not only for столик, it could be зарезервировать или забронировать номер. So a reservation, it could be for a table in a restaurant, it could be in a hotel for a room as well. A reservation. Этот столик зарезервирован. This table is reserved. The most difficult thing here is to remember where to put the stress. Reservation. So we have a long v, reservation. But reserved. A long for the second syllable. Reservation, reserved. Reservation, reserved. The next one. Его состояние тяжелое, но стабильное. Стабильное is stable. As usual, the stress is different in English and Russian. Стабильное, stable. His condition is serious, but stable. It's one of these s-tut words. What happens with a s-tut word? We do quite a long s, a little pause, and then say dable. Stable, stable, stable. So it's not like a normal English stable, stable, stable. It's unaspirated after s, stable. Большинство людей хотят, чтобы правительство обеспечивало стабильность. Most people want the government to provide stability. Now here the stress, like in стабильность, is on the second syllable. Stability. Stability. We can't stretch a but, so we do a little pause. Stability. Stability. With a pause. Stability. Stability. The next one. Новому президенту удалось стабилизировать экономику. We're still doing stable. This time it's stabilize. The new president managed to stabilize the economy. Stabilize. Next one. Мне нравится ваша теория. I like your theory. Theory. This word can be pronounced with a long I. Theory. Theory. Like the serious sound. It can be like serious theory. Serious theory. Or you can say theory if you want. Like idea, theory. Idea, theory. Idea, theory. It doesn't matter. Theory, theory. Theory, theory. Both pronunciations are possible. We can also say теоретически. Это возможно. Теоретически. It's theoretically possible. Теоретически. Теорети, fourth syllable. Third syllable. Nearly the same. Theoretically. Theoretically. So what's the most important sound? It's the stretched r. Theoretically. And uli at the end becomes like cli. Theoretically. Theoretically. Theoretically, yes. Hold the r. Theoretically possible. And that's all. That's 10 cognates. So press pause, read all the sentences, use voice typing to check your pronunciation, and then you can watch the last part of the lesson, 10 more cognates. Let's move on to the last set of 10 words in today's lesson. У нас нет альтернативы. Alternativa is an alternative. We have no alternative. Alternative. Don't pronounce the r. Alternative. 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 Double sound. Alternative. And it's also an adjective. Нам нужно найти альтернативный маршрут. We need to find an alternative route. And don't forget about connected speech. An alternative, like one word. The next one, церемония. Свадебная церемония состоялась на прошлой неделе. The wedding ceremony took place last week. I made my s at the beginning of ceremony so long that voice typing added an extra s. Wedding ceremony. The wedding ceremony took place last week. To mark the stress on the first syllable, ceremony. 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 S. Long s at the beginning. Ceremony. The next one. По какому каналу показывают футбольный матч? What channel is the football match on? So, canal is a channel when we're talking about the television. So, первый канал is channel 1 or first channel. I think channel 1 sounds more natural than first channel. Yes, my mother-in-law always watches the first channel. No, channel 1, I think you should call it. That sounds better. Channel 1. But канал, если мы говорим про воду, if it's artificial, so a canal is an artificial passage of water. And a channel is a natural passage of water. So it depends. Sometimes canal is a channel, sometimes it's a canal. But if we're talking about the television, it's always a channel. Channel. The next one. Опишите его характер. Характер is character. Describe his character. Remember to put the stress on the first syllable. Character. Character. Again, to mark the stress, we don't do character. We do a pause before the k. His character. His character. When we talk about характеристики, it's characteristics. So the stress is on the characteristics, the fourth syllable. Каковы основные характеристики нарциссиста? What are the main characteristics of a narcissist? So narcissist, that's another cognate. Characteristics. Характеристики нарциссиста, narcissist. Two cognates in this sentence. The next one. Химическое оружие запрещено. Chemical weapons are forbidden. So, химические, chemical, they don't sound exactly the same, but obviously they are родственные слова, cognates. They have a similar root. If we're talking about химикаты, в этом шкафу хранятся химикаты. Chemicals are kept in this cupboard. Chemicals, it's a k at the beginning, chemicals. And the school subject, химия, is chemistry. I didn't like my school chemistry teacher. Учитель по химии. So, chemicals, chemistry, chemical weapons. The next one. Я хочу посмотреть следующий эпизод. I want to watch the next episode. The stress is on the first syllable in this word, episode. The last syllable is the longest because it's a double vowel, an O. Episode. So it's long, but it's soft and it disappears. Episode. Sewed. The second part of it, it's like spoken under your voice. Полуголосом. Sewed. Episode. Episode. The next one. Традиционный метод работает медленнее. Method is a method. The traditional method is slower. Here the important thing is to avoid saying method with a method. A long m. Method. The e is actually clipped. It's short because the th is глухой, unvoiced. Method. 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 Если она работает методично или последовательно, then she works methodically. So in this word, methodically, the stress moves to the second syllable. I like this word, so let's have a look at some other verbs that can be used with methodically. Let's have a look. Well, we've got work methodically. They're all вспомогательные глаголы. Began, you can begin to do something methodically, I suppose. Search methodically, plan something methodically, build methodically. I think it is a good translation of последовательно, methodically. The next one. Я хочу модернизировать свой бизнес. I want to modernize the business. The stress is on the first syllable, modernize, but it's not modern. Modernize. A long m. M is a really stretchy sound. I want to modernize the business. Modernize. And then a little z at the end. Modernize. Modernize. The next one, the penultimate. This is the penultimate word. Предпоследний, penultimate. Нашего доктора любят все ее пациенты. Patient is a patient. Our doctor is loved by all her patients. Patients, there we go. Patients. And the last word is мой брат пилот или летчик. My brother is a pilot. So as is so often the case, the stress in English is on a different syllable. Pilot. Pilot. And the l at the end, pilot. There's almost no voice in it. Pilot. So it's pa. Open your mouth. Pa. Yi. Lit. Don't say pilot. It's not a pilot. It's a pilot. 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 Lots of y. The y is important. Pilot. Okay. That's all. Well done. So in today's lesson, you reached the end of the difficult words, the non-cognates. There are 3 more lessons in the course, 150 more words, but they are all cognates. I hope that you also enjoyed the cognates part today. I think it's quite interesting to practice these words as well. You know, they're also important. They're also words that we use a lot. And if you want to have very natural English pronunciation, you need to be able to pronounce them well, pronounce them correctly. So I really hope that you will watch the final 3 lessons of the course too and work on these cognates. But well done for getting to the end of the non-cognates. You've done very well if you've got this far. All right, see you soon. Bye.